I was looking at, so you mentioned, Joshua Dobbs, how rock solid he was, as far as using his mobility, utilizing him in the RPOs, having some design runs for the veteran quarterback with the rookie quarterback. If you look at Dobbs versus Tune, and Tune, as I pointed out, a far distant second in his combine to Anthony Richardson, but second most athletic quarterback in the 2023 class, according to the NFL Combine metrics. He ran a 4.6440. Joshua Dobbs ran a 4.6440 when he came out of school.
He can move.
Higher vert from Clayton Tune as far as like his 3-cone. Dobbs a little bit quicker there, so you're looking at maybe not like the lateral movement, probably a little bit more from Dobbs, and that's important. You look at the shuttle a little quicker with Clayton Tune. So I don't think you're getting that much of a drop off, and I think Tune is going to have the ability, especially not having really anything to lose, one and done starting, to go out there and really kind of leave it on the field.
Over under how many attempts rushing do you think he'll have this weekend?
I think he'll have it. I would put it at like 5.5, 6.5.
Yeah, that was my exact line.
Yeah, I think he approaches it, no doubt.
Probably has like 2 to 3 like direct runs and then a couple scrambles. I think it's an interesting facet to his game that we didn't see a lot of, but we knew it was there during the preseason. How about some interesting matchups for this game, Mr. Bulbrock? Because, I mean, the number one, Clayton Tune versus the Browns defense with Jim Schwartz and company, and that fearsome pass rush. That defense, 4 of 7 rush TDs allowed versus quarterbacks, 20 sacks, Bulbrock. You just mentioned it. Kid can move. Can the Cardinals take advantage of his mobility? Sans Dobbs and Kyler Murray.
And this is where it's going to come down on the shoulders of the Arizona Cardinals play caller and Drew Petzing, right? Because, if you're in close, if Clayton Tune can operate an offense and get inside the red zone, this is where quarterbacks have been able to kind of expose this one of the few flaws that this Browns defense has. Gardner Minshew had 2 rushing touchdowns against this defense, right? 2 rushing touchdowns on 3 attempts, so he was efficient in running the football. Can Clayton Tune do the same? I mean, I think that becomes, that's part of his arsenal. That's part of his repertoire. And if that's something that you can take advantage of, certainly do that. But then you also see so the 4 of the 7 rush TDs allowed are from quarterbacks. And then you've got also the numbers like 20 sacks. And then if you look at some of the other games, like how they've been able to really bottle up and just suppress quarterbacks from running the football as well, they've also done a really good job in there. So it's a pretty uneven performance from this defense. Arizona Cardinals obviously want to be have a solid performance compared to like what they did against a Tannehill, Burrow, and just completely shutting those guys down and keeping them in the pocket and putting them on the turf.
Likelihood, I think, is pretty high that Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon reached out to Shane Steichen in some form about what the Colts were able to do against this defense a couple weeks ago that should have led them to victory. But regardless, over 30 points, and it was led by a backup in Gardner Minshew with, I think, comparable mobility to Clayton Tune. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Try to emulate that performance as much as you can. And, they had Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, but man, that would be the mindset, is just how many attempts can we get from Clayton Tune on the ground to give him a seam and let him get upfield and just convert first downs. Like we're going to talk about our predictions here in a second, but man, I think 20 points wins this game either way. I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to tear apart this Arizona Cardinal defense. And Bo, that brings us into our next matchup.
Yeah, let's take a look at so we were talking about this on the audio only, and then we'll bring it here onto the live preview show, the Browns quarterbacks, but it certainly looks like all signs are pointing to the return of Deshaun Watson. As a group, the 3 quarterbacks, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and then most recently PJ Walker, and then Watson included, 55% completion percentage, just 5 touchdowns and 11 interceptions going up against the Cardinals defensive backs. And primarily when I think about, where they can get the edge, it's not the outside corners where we've seen them struggle with Marco Wilson and now Starling Thomas, who's kind of taken over that starting job from Keitrell Clark. But the kind of the inside defensive backs, Jalen Thompson getting back to more of his comfortable safety position along with Budda Baker, and then and then Garrett Williams, who's played rock solid since he's returned from the injury. Like, can those guys be a nuisance for Deshaun Watson anytime he looks over the middle of the field?
Yeah. He also takes a lot of sacks. So the 2 games to end
12
last
times.
year. Yeah. 12 times this year. And then in the final 2 games of last year, 12 times.
Wow.
So, I mean, you think about it. He played, 4 games this year? So 24 times in the last, 6 games? I mean, the Cardinals have to be licking their chops. And I made an argument all week. Like, PJ Walker is what he is. He's a backup. He was egregious this year. Deshaun Watson is going to give the Cardinals opportunities to stay in this football game. Like, unless Stefanski takes a similar approach of what I think the Cardinals are going to do and try to ram it right at Arizona, 30 plus times this game with Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford, I think Deshaun Watson is primed to keep the Cardinals in this game. I don't think he's going to play particularly well. I think he's still compromised and maybe feels pressure to come back early, given the situation with his contract and the fans there basically saying, like, we have what we feel like is an NFC North caliber winning team, certainly with their defense and some of their skill players, but our quarterback's just been a big heap of trash this year, the quarterback position in general. I think the Cardinals, again, I said it, I'll double down on the audio only from last night. I think they win the turnover battle. I think they're going to win this game because I think they're going to be so conservative offensively. It's going to lead them to not turning the ball over. And then let's just do it. Let's get to our official predictions for this game. I'm happy to go first. I have confidence in this defense. Right now, I'm going to have to see it with my eyes as it relates to Clayton Tune. I think the Cardinals lose 20-10. If you tell me the Cardinals score in the mid to high teens, they're going to be in this game till the very end. But they weren't doing that with Joshua Dobbs. Now you're without Michael Wilson, DeMercado. It's just a lot to ask. I think I'm being fair here. The defense, I think, keeps them in it. This is a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter, but somebody who's got to keep you in it offensively is Trey McBride. He's the offensive star. He's going to be the breakout star for this team offensively this year, and we've seen it now. Like, he's going to get to over 100 yards at some point this year in a game for the first time in forever for the Arizona Cardinals. He will be talked about as the top 10 tight end coming into 2024. He's got that skill set. He has always been a plus receiver. Now he's putting it together on the blocking front. That was the one thing kind of holding him back. He had a little bit of an injury during training camp. He is playing with so much confidence right now, and the confidence comes from knowing that it's his job and he's going to get the targets. I think it's another big day for him, kind of by default. And on the flip side, like, I think we get a Budda Baker interception this weekend. I think Deshaun, as we just mentioned, is going to give them opportunities. Budda Baker has been fantastic since coming back. The defense has been flying around. Their secondary has been fabulous since Budda Baker came back 2 games ago against Seattle. I think they have their best game to date. Like, I would not be surprised if Deshaun Watson throws 0 touchdowns and like 1 to 2 interceptions. Like, I definitely could see that with the way this defense is playing. Coupling, of course, Jalen Thompson, who's a stud. Garrett Williams is playing really good football. And then the X factor. I teased on it earlier, plus 1,600. Like, Zach Pascal is going to be part of the starting offense. He's a tremendous run blocker. I think he's going to get opportunities with the football in his hands. And again, could it be running the football? Of course, in the passing game. I think, of course, Hollywood Brown and Trey McBride are the 2 people everybody knows. But this is the third target, and he's not a burner. He's going to be open, hopefully, and available for Clayton Tune. He cannot have the same drops that he had earlier this year that caused them to have turnovers, that caused them to drop touchdowns against San Francisco. But I do think a big difference, he's been getting number 1 reps all week, Bo. And so he's comfortable in his role because most of the time those go to Michael Wilson, who we don't expect to play.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be, every player has to be played near perfect game, right? Like, Pascal can't have the mistake that he had that led to the pick 6 so many weeks ago against the Bengals, like you said. Trey McBride, as great a game as he had last week with the 10 catches, 95 yards, he had a crucial 3rd down drop that would have been huge for the Cardinals offense. Like, got to come up with that, got to rein that in. And I like your picks, right? And I always like to, obviously our score predictions, they don't match. Like, these are our players of the game. Like, I feel like my players of the game, like, okay, if they can have success, this is where it's going to come from. But I think yours is gritty, man. Because it feels like this is a sandpaper type game, right? Like, it's going to take this team being real gritty to get this thing done on Sunday. And if you'd love to see him continue to kind of change and feed the misconception or misperception of this organization. Like, they can scratch and claw, they can be competitive once again when people are counting them out. Let's take a look at my predictions here, Damon. I've got the Cardinals falling to 24-15, a few more points on the board. But if they are going to get there, if they're going to be in this game and it's going to be, keep it under 10 or keep it a one possession game, it's going to come down to Clayton Tune. He's got to be the offensive star of the game. Like, he's got to be able to find, his first career touchdown, whether it's on the ground or whether that's through the air. He's going to have to be able to cash in when they're close. And then, as I mentioned, having success against Deshaun Watson, who might not necessarily be at full strength, who has put the football up for grabs this season. And Johnny believes that the Cardinals will get their hands on a football. I think if that happens, it's going to come via the rookie cornerback out of Syracuse, who's already done it in his first career game. I look for Garrett Williams to continue to trend up. And then talk about the X factor. I felt like this guy, the only way that you could get Rondale Moore into the game plan was on the ground. And I think he'll certainly have his attempts this week. But I think you get him reincorporated in the slot. Like, I think I remember at least Clayton Tune had a lot of success throwing to Greg Dortch in the preseason. And Greg Dortch was the backup to Rondale Moore and running the same route tree as Rondale Moore in the slot. And I think that Clayton Tune will look for number 4 more in the passing game than Joshua Dobbs did.
I like Rondale Moore a lot in this game because I think he had opportunities last week. He made the most of them. I think he deserves more opportunities, particularly on the ground, because it's going to be Keontae Ingram. So the supplemental kind of change of pace back is the former second rounder out of Purdue that's I think a converted wide receiver to running back right now, at least a co-share of that workload. Alex, $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. If the D-line can do what they did against Lamar, we'll have a good shot at holding their quarterback in check. I think if the defense plays the exact same game as last week, they have a chance to win this game.
Yeah.
And again, Lamar was off a heater of a game against Detroit. And I think the Ravens have better personnel. And I think certainly they're better coached. Now, they came into State Farm Stadium. The Cardinals have to go to Cleveland. But Deshaun Watson, I'll eat crow in the post-game, Bo. I do not think he's right and ripe to pick apart the Cardinals for multiple touchdowns to no interceptions. The Cardinals will have opportunities, but unlike Seattle, can they convert on those opportunities from turnovers? They lost that game in Seattle 3-0 winning the turnover battle. That can't happen again.
Right. In short fields, you don't want to keep on putting your defense in a tough spot. It's gonna take a really an offense that's bucking the trends and the expectations for this weekend to nearly play a perfect game relative to what the personnel is, right? I mean, what you're going to get from a 5th round rookie at quarterback and having a wide receiver core that's going to likely feature or start Zach Pascal. Talk about really just resetting before Kyler Murray comes back. That's what this game is. And it's just all right, let's just get through it. And hopefully they can kind of make it a fun experience along the way. But I think a lot of people are skeptical. Just they've seen where this roster is even at full strength. And then when it's, undermanned as it is now, as much as it's ever been this entire season, people are okay, this is where they look like what the national media thought of the Arizona Cardinals before the season began.